Hello, Algebra 1. Today we're looking at Chapter 4. We're going to be doing exponential functions in Chapter 4. And we're going to start out by looking at zero and negative exponents. So what we're actually doing is we're starting to look at properties of exponents. And it turns out there's about 7 of them, I think. 7 different properties. Some textbooks teach all the properties in one lesson, and man, is that confusing. We're going to split it up over a few lessons, and I'm hoping that with practice, these will all come together nicely. So to start out, you've got some objectives there. Today we're going to learn the zero exponent property and the negative exponents property. And I'll be honest with you, in the past when I teach this, I teach it after the other properties. These are the last ones I teach. But I get the reasoning for teaching them first, okay? If you teach them first, then all the other properties, you're not afraid to use zero exponents. You're not afraid to use negative exponents. They can be meshed in. But I will tell you that you're going to have to kind of take my word on some of these. I'll do kind of an informal proof of each of these later once we learn the other properties. But you're going to have to take my word for these today. But you honestly don't have to just take my word. You can also take your calculator's word for this. And the first property, the zero exponents property, says that a base... Oh, before we get there, let's get some vocabulary down. So a power, what is a power? Well, a power might be like a to the 7th power is how you'd say it, where a is the base. And then 7 is the exponent. But you'll have this, people often say, this is a to the 7th power, okay? Yeah, so anyway, yeah, the whole thing is called a power as well, I think. All right, so, yeah, it turns out a base raised to the 0 power is always 1. How weird is that? Okay, so if a can be anything you want, a is anything at all. If it's raised to the 0 power, your answer is 1. And I would encourage you, grab a calculator, try this out. Different calculators have different buttons for exponents. Mine that I'm using right here has an XY, X with a superscript Y. Sometimes you'll have like a button that looks like that. But yeah, try something wacky. I'll try negative, 569 negative, and then I'll raise it to the 0 power and hit equals. And you get 1. It's so bizarre, but it'll make sense later on when we learn some other properties. So, class, what's anything to the 0 power? Yeah, it's 1. Now be careful here because we do have to do order of operations when we're talking about exponents. We've got an exponent, we've got multiplication. We want to do the exponent first. So what's 1/9 to the 0 power? Well, that's 1. But we have that 5 left over. It was not raised to the 0 power. So 5 times 1 is 5. So do be careful with that. This whole parentheses here is raised to the 0 power, so all of that just turns to 1. Same thing. Yeah, we got lots of different things multiplying in here, but it's all raised to the 0 power. So it's 1. Now notice, you got to notice the nuance here. On this next problem, it's negative, but then it's parentheses 9 to the 0 power. Well, again, you're going to kind of think of this as like a two-step expression. You're going to raise 9 to the 0 power, then multiply by the negative. So 9 to the 0 power is 1. and then you multiply by the negative, or a -1, and you get -1. So yeah, here we go. Before we move on, I also need to probably point out something that might throw people off. Depending on what calculator you use, it may give you wrong answers if you don't realize this. So I'm going to show you something real quick. We'll call this F, example F. But if you have a negative number without parentheses raised to a power, it's kind of like having the parentheses around that 9 there. If there's no parentheses in here, this is actually saying, essentially, -1 times 5 to the 0 power. So just like before with parentheses 9, this will get you the same thing. It'll 5 to the 0 power is 1, and then you're going to get -1. Like so. So this is, you got to be careful with this, because yeah, if you have one of these calculators and you type in 5 negative and raise it to the 0 power, you're telling this calculator to raise the negative and the 5 to the 0 power, and you'll get 1. So what you have to realize with one of these calculators is you need to evaluate the 5 to the 0 power first, then multiply by the negative, or the -1. Okay, so these calculators are a little more basic. The other calculators, I can't remember what they call it, like full display or something like that. But they will actually compute this accurately and get you -1. These calculators, you got to be careful. Okay, so the other thing that we're going to look at today, which is pretty wild, is negative exponents. Negative exponents take the reciprocal and change the exponent to a positive. What the heck? Okay, so here's an example of it. You have a to the -n. The reciprocal of a to the n is 1 over a to the n. And then you get rid of the negative, because if you leave the negative, then you'd have to keep moving it around. You're done once you move it. If you happen to be in the denominator like so, you still take the reciprocal, you flip it over. Technically it's a to the n over 1, but we don't need to write that because the 1 doesn't do anything in that case. Or we could say a to the n divided by 1 is just a to the n. Okay, so I find myself saying a lot of times with negative exponents, I find myself saying move it upstairs or downstairs. And it's not mathematical terminology, but man, does it seem to help students figure this out. So what I mean by this is a to the -n is not in the denominator of a fraction, so it's upstairs. But the negative exponent moved it where? Well, it moved it downstairs. So, excuse me, we put a 1 over the top to make it downstairs. And this one's downstairs and it moves upstairs. But mathematically, you're actually taking the reciprocal of it. Okay, so the reciprocal of a to the -2 would be 1 over a to the -2. But once we do the reciprocal, it becomes positive. So it's 1 over a squared. It was upstairs, it moved downstairs. 1 over a to the -2. The reciprocal of that is a to the -2. But when we move it, when we make it its reciprocal, it becomes positive. So it's, it's a squared. Another way to think of it is it's downstairs and it's going to move upstairs. So anyway, hopefully some math teachers aren't too mad at me if they watch this video. All right, so let's try this out. Right now, it's got a negative exponent. We need to take its reciprocal and change the exponent positive. Then after that, we can go ahead and evaluate 2 to the 3rd power. That's 8. So our answer is 1/8. Don't get in the habit of entering this into your calculator at first. You'll get a decimal answer. We don't want that. We want you to use the properties. That's why we're going to switch to variables here pretty soon. Okay, right now this is downstairs. Or another way to think of it is it's got a negative exponent. We need to make it its reciprocal. Its reciprocal is going to flip this all over upside down. And so it's going to be 3 to the 4th. Once you take the reciprocal, you change it positive. Or you can think of it as moving upstairs. And then you can punch in 3 to the 4th in your calculator. Or you can figure it out in your noggin. It's going to be 81. A negative exponent to a parentheses here. So this is all going to become the reciprocal. Change the exponent positive. We get 1 over 81. Notice the negative got squared. Okay. On this one, it's downstairs. It's going to move upstairs. And let's see. 64 is our answer. Oh, I should be more accurate. I was wrong. It's negative 64 is our answer. And I'm actually taking a video, Elijah. How's it going? I feel like I'm going to be saying goodbye to you for the 3rd time today. Bye, Elijah. Have a good.
Sorry for ruining your video.
You're fine. It's not ruined. It just got colorful is all. Yeah. See ya. All right. So, class, something interesting I should point out. When you raise a negative number to an even power, it's always going to be positive. When you raise a negative number to an odd power, it's always going to be negative. It's kind of a cool thing to kind of check yourself. Okay, so now E gets a little more complicated. What I see here is I see some negative exponents upstairs, some negative exponents downstairs. They need to move. The 2 doesn't have any exponent with it that needs to move. Technically, it's got an exponent of 1. It stays right where it's at. But everything else moves. The Z comes up. The X goes down. The Y goes down. And we are done. It's kind of like a puzzle. I like it. All right, the D goes up. The C goes down. We're done. Now on this one, 7 does not have a negative exponent, so we leave it alone. And then we bring up the x squared to the top, and we are good. All right, I think we might, nope, look at that. We are done. All right, well, thanks for watching. Practice.